Hey guys, welcome to another lecture on income distribution, or more precisely, the equity in income distribution and how it can affect different economic circumstances. Now we're going to look at a stock standard analysis between a government goal and our living standards for this lecture. Now, since we're focusing on income distribution at the moment, we're going to look at how income distribution can affect both material and non-material living standards. And we're going to split this up into two groups, as we have done previously. We're going to split them to material as well as non-material. So refresh your memory, material living standards relate to any number of goods and services available to consume by households, and it relates to our tangible satisfaction of our life, whereas the non-material living standards, or our non-material living standards, relate to our overall level of well-being. So that relates to crime rates, our leisure time, our health, our independence, and all these other intangible aspects that contribute to our overall standard of living. Okay, so what we're going to assume to start off this analysis is that the government doesn't achieve its economic goal. And so what this means is that there is an inequitable distribution of income. Because if the government were to achieve its goal of an equitable distribution of income, then assumedly we would have high material and high non-material living standards, because the government aims to maximize our living standards as its primary goal. So we're going to look at the converse, where the government has not achieved this goal, and how this could detrimentally affect both our material and non-material living standards. Okay, so assume for the minute that we have an inequitable distribution of income. So what this means is that the rich take up a large proportion of the income pie. So this means that the top 1% earn 99% of the income, as a gross exaggeration, and the bottom 99% earn 1% of the income. And so what this means is that it is all well and good for the top 1%. It means that the top 1% will have access to proper health, dental care, education, holidays, great designer clothing, housing, the great life, and even in their retirement, they're going to have a very, very healthy and prosperous life. And so the material living standards for the 1% here, I'm going to give that a tick. So the 1%, great. And same with the non-material living standards, they're great. So what's the problem here? Well, as we know, the government aims to cater for everybody in the economy. It's not that they're just not worried about the 1%, they're worried about the entire 100% of the economy. So we're going to examine how the 99% will fare if the 1% earn 99% of the income. So the rest of the population, what that would mean is that because the income distribution is so skewed towards 1%, so we're going to look at the graph again. So because the income distribution is so skewed to the 1% like this, where this is the quintiles and this is percentage of total income, because we see that the fifth quintile has so much of the total proportion of income, this means the 1% would have rather low material living standards. It means they have relatively low incomes, which means their purchasing power is also very weak. And if we aggregate all these together, we will see that because they have low material living standards, or because due to low incomes and a very weak purchasing power, this means they have very limited access to goods and services. So what this means is that they can't satisfy So needs and wants, I'm going to put 3 crosses there to signify that their needs and wants are not totally satisfied. And so although it is good for the 1%, the 99% will suffer poor material living standards as a result. We're going to look at the non-material aspects of the living standards of the poorer 99% of the population. And the analysis is very similar. Because they have possibly very risky or insecure jobs, and because they have low income or financial stability, they may suffer a decrease in their non-material living standards. So this means that they can't plan ahead, they can't have holidays to relax and to travel because they need to work so hard in order to provide a strong and sustainable financial base. Because they're on such a low income, they can't afford to go on holidays and they can't afford to take leisure time off. And possibly they can't afford to start families because they don't have enough money to cater for their children. And so that's going to be at the cost of their non-material living standards. And again, if we were to make a gross generalization, in most cases where the income distribution is skewed towards the top 1%, as is the case in many African countries, the crime rates are very high. This means that those bottom 99% who share only 1% of the income cake will grow what would you call a increasing resentment towards the top 1%. And this is because they will feel that they are hard done by because the top 1% are living such a very satisfactory and such an easy lifestyle, whereas they're busting their guts to work and to provide their family with a sound financial future and all that, and that's going to create resentment towards the top 9%, and which would cause such problems such as alienation or this divide between socioeconomic groups, and also civil discontentment. And they're all factors contributing to our non-material living standards. So as we can see now, an inequitable distribution of income will lead to a very detrimental effect on both our material and our non-material living standards.